Hey YouTubers, it's me, Mustn07, and in this video, we're going to see all kinds of different freight trains, ranging from unit trains to mixed freight to intermodal trains. So, get set for the best trains of 2025. We will start by looking at a pretty common modern train. This one is being led by 3 modern General Electric GEVO locomotives, and is an intermodal train which carries many different things, and the reason they're so efficient is because everything is in big containers and therefore can be easily moved from one mode of transportation to the other without having to unload anything. Sometimes you'll see a locomotive from a different railroad company on a different line. This is referred to as foreign power. Let's look at the different types of foreign power. This black locomotive is an old Norfolk Southern SC70 ACU, which is now owned by PRLX, a leasing company. Because yes, railroad companies will rent out locomotives. In Shreveport, Norfolk Southern is the most common foreign power to see on trains. And this train also happens to be a military train which is transporting military equipment somewhere. Here's another Norfolk Southern locomotive. It is crossing the Red River Bridge in Shreveport. It is also fairly common to see BNSF locomotives on Union Pacific lines that go in and out of Shreveport. And on slightly rarer occurrences, you may even see CSX locomotives going through Shreveport. Though if you live somewhere else, perhaps where there's CSX-owned lines, you may see CSX locomotives every single day, because it all depends on where you live and what locomotives you see. One of the more fun aspects of looking for trains, or rail fanning as it's referred to, is that you can find all these different angles to look for trains. Just make sure when you look for trains that you find a safe place that isn't too close to the tracks, because not only is that very dangerous, but it's illegal because railroads are considered private property. Another fun aspect of rail fanning is that you never know what you'll see. You may see a relatively normal laship of locomotives, or you could see a very diverse laship of locomotives. You probably noticed that this train has a laship of 3 locomotives, yet is only pulling 2 rail cars. This is a local freight train, and they are most commonly pulled by older locomotives, such as these GP40 series locomotives, and they usually do not pull that many things, but at the same time, they can have an enormous variance, such as this one, which is only pulling 2 cars, but there will be others that are pulling 20 plus cars. Here's the same local freight service a few months earlier. These types of trains are very important because they take freight cars from industries to rail yards where they are transferred onto long distance trains. And here it is back in spring of 2025, and it's going the other direction, this time pulling a lot more cars. And here's a local freight train on the Union Pacific Railroad. It is going down an old line to a glass factory, carrying hoppers loaded with sand, so that way they can turn it into glass. There are many different types of specialized trains that deliver stuff, such as this ballast train that is transporting ballast to different places. These are commonly referred to as unit trains, as they transport a single bulk commodity from one manufacturer to one customer, and the most common type of unit train is a coal train, at least in the United States, as they're transporting coal from mines directly to the power plants. This is a unit grain train. They transport grain usually from various farmers that'll put them in silos, to then a company that uses the grain to make things. Another specialized train you may see is a military train, which is chartered by the military to transport equipment around, and this one also happens to have a heritage unit in tow. nowadays on trains, you will see locomotives on the back. These are referred to as DPUs. DPU stands for Distributed Power Unit, as the locomotive on the back is being remotely controlled by the driver on the head end of the train. It is especially common to see DPUs, especially in sets of 2, on coal trains, because they require more locomotive power. Increasingly nowadays, you will even see locomotives in the middle of trains, because they help with more efficiency. may be wondering why that lead locomotive was running backwards. Well, that is referred to as long hood forward, and if there's no locomotive around that's facing the right position, they sometimes have to do that. Alright, here it is, the longest train in the video. And a fun little thing you could do is try to count how many cars there are on this train. A few years ago, in the world of railroading, the Kansas City Southern Railroad was purchased by the Canadian Pacific Railroad, and this new railroad is referred to as the CPKC, and we've started to see more of the locomotives painted in their new livery. Well, that just about does it for this video. I hope you enjoyed the best trains of 2025, because we saw all kinds of cool trains. And, as always, thanks for watching, stay tuned for more videos, and goodbye.